Hello world, here we are again. We're right in the middle of the rainy season, which has been very hard this year. We've had a lot of heavy rain and a lot of flooding up here in the north of Thailand, in and around Chiang Rai. And my house, which is luckily built on stilts, has got water underneath it. And the field next door is a flooded and overgrown rice field. And there are a lot of animals, like this crab here, which are washed up under the house. There are more crabs. A lot of water. The bike is very dirty because I've had to ride through a pond in order to get out onto the road. Anyway, there's a break in the weather today. It's very nice weather, very dry, nice and sunny, no rain forecast today. So a perfect day for a little test ride on the new Royal Enfield Himalayan, or Himalayan, I think it's supposed to be called. So here we are leaving the house for the first time in a few days because it's been very difficult with the water. And heading up north of the river to the Royal Enfield dealer here in Chiang Rai. So there we are. There's a little pond I have to go through to get out onto the road. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this test ride on the new Himalayan. Here's my dirty Honda. So here we are coming into the dealer here in Chiang Rai. There's the bike I'm going to be riding today, the new Himalayan. In very nice colors too, black and gold and yellow. I think that's a great color combination for this bike. And the salesman very kindly wheeling the bike out for me onto the road, ready for me to test. They don't really like you riding the bikes for more than 10 or 15 minutes normally when you do a test ride in Thailand. So I don't have the bike for very long. But the first thing I notice when I get onto it is how tall it is, especially coming from my little, or my low I should say, it's not particularly small, but it's a very low cruiser, my Honda Rebel 500. And getting onto this bike, you notice immediately how tall it is. Here's the salesman taking a photo of me. I'm not too sure why, whether it's because he's keeping it as a record in case I run away with the bike and don't bring it back, and he's got some documentary evidence to show the police. Anyway, here we go, riding the bike for the first time. Yeah, very nice, comfortable position, very high position on this bike. It's a tall bike, so you get a good view of the road and the other traffic on the road. Now, I really want to go north, away from the city, but in order to do that, I'll have to do a quick turn and go round under the bridge and come back up again on the other side of this highway here. So the first thing I do and have to do after I set off now is, actually I realize I haven't adjusted the mirrors properly, so I pull over to the side on the left and adjust these mirrors. Actually, one thing I noticed immediately, they're good mirrors. Get a good view behind with them, and I didn't notice any vibrations with them. And of course, because the central instrument there in the middle is also round, and it's almost the same sort of size as these mirrors, I think it's a good design feature that we've got these two round mirrors and the round display in the center. So here we are, just getting the mirror adjusted, ready to move off again. And there we go, get it fixed, there we are. So first thing I noticed on leaving with the bike, it's got good acceleration, and this is the corner coming up where I turn under the bridge and come back up to ride north out of the city. And this is the first chance I have to see how the bike handles. And I must say, I think it handles very well. Took this corner very easily, good handling, coming around this corner. Good acceleration. The motor seems to be quite lively, quite elastic, and the clutch is very, very light. That's one thing I was really impressed by. It's a very, very light clutch, very easy gear change. Nice acceleration here up through the gears coming away, going north on this highway. And the first thing I noticed when I came up to this first set of traffic lights where I had to stop is that even though the bike is quite tall, because the tank is quite narrow in front, it's, for me at least, very easy to put my feet down when waiting at the traffic lights here, and putting my feet flat on the ground. I'm about 1.80 meters tall. It's about 5'11". And here waiting at another set of lights before I turn around to come back into town. Same thing again, very easy to handle, I'd say, this bike. It's comfortable, as I say, even though it's a tall bike and quite different from my Honda, it's not a handful. It's not hard to handle, and waiting here at the lights, no problem for me to put my feet flat on the ground. And you'll hear in a few seconds I'll start the motor, and I'll let you listen to the sound of the engine. One of the things I noticed recently when I test rode one of the new Triumph 400s, the Bajaj 400s that are made for Triumph, one thing I didn't like about that bike was that it sounded a bit like a sewing machine, had a sort of whiny tone to it, the engine. So it's not the best recording because the microphone was inside my helmet, so you only get a little bit of an idea of what the engine sounds like, but it does sound good, I think. And as I said, I think it sounds a lot better than the 400cc bikes that Triumph are now selling, the Bajaj ones they're selling with a Triumph badge. One bike I would like to compare this with is the new CF Moto 450 MT, which everybody's raving about. And when that comes to Thailand, strangely there's no dealer at the moment in Thailand, but I think there will be soon. When that bike comes to Thailand, I'm looking forward to test riding that bike, I hope, and comparing it with the Himalayan. As I say, I was quite impressed by this bike, probably I would say, I mean, it was a short trip, it was only 10 or 15 minutes, but here we are coming back into the dealers again. But I think, yeah, a good bike. So let's have a quick walk around here. There's the Himalayan. I've just ridden this bike for about 20 minutes. And I must say, it was a very enjoyable bike to ride. I liked it a lot. Quite comfortable. The tank at the front is quite narrow. Don't really notice the tank between your legs there. It's a tall bike, but I think, for me at least, I would get used to that very quickly. As I said before, I really appreciate this. I like this central round display here, which I know can be connected to the phone, so that you put your navigation here on the screen. And what I very much like is for a change, not only having neutral being shown, but all the other gears as well, up to the 6th gear, which I think is very useful. I don't understand why some bikes, including mine, my Honda Rebel, or the Classic before, the Classic 350, don't really understand why manufacturers leave off the gear indicator. I'm sure it can't be a cost factor, because it can't cost more than a few dollars to have the electrics set up to show which gear you're in. Anyway, there we are, there's the bike, and maybe go inside and have a look at a couple of other bikes before my battery runs out. So now this is a very beautiful bike. I think this is the Meteor, the Meteor 350, which has exactly the same motor in it as my Classic 350, and I think it's a particularly beautiful bike. It's actually a sort of fusion in some ways between the Classic and the Meteor, because it has these chrome wheels, which are the ones used on the Classic 350. It has the chrome wheels, and obviously in this case it has very special paintwork. Again, I think this is very much sort of 1960s style. And they do a blue version of this same. This is the Aurora, the Royal Enfield Meteor Aurora. This special two-tone paintwork here, very unusual sort of turquoise green. I think it's sort of 1960s style. But it's not just the paintwork which is different. What they've also done is use the classic 350 spoke wheels, which probably not as practical as the aluminium wheels with tubeless tires, but I think it looks great, and it's probably more comfortable than the normal aluminium wheel version. And I think this is a very, very attractive bike, very special. Unfortunately for me, having ridden the Classic 350 for 1 year, and this is the Classic 350 here, which in fact is very similar to my old bike because it's the red and chrome version. So I'm very familiar with this bike. I rode this bike for 15,000 kilometers for 12 months. It's a lovely bike. It's great, it's comfortable, it's very relaxing to ride, but I found the 350cc air and oil-cooled engine that this has, and it shares with the Meteor over here, the Aurora. This one here has exactly the same motor in them. But for me, I found after riding it for a year and riding it on some long trips as well, I found it struggled just a little bit too much on the mountain roads and on the long trip I took when I went from here down to Chumpon in the south during the so-called smoky season. I rode 1,250 kilometers, and this bike basically, or this engine, as soon as you get to about 100 kilometers an hour, it's basically, that's it. It gives up, which is a real pity because I think both bikes, but especially this cruiser style, it has a different peg position, you see, than the pegs are slightly further forward than on my Classic. So it's more relaxing. It's more like the Rebel, which I'm riding at the moment, the Honda Rebel. In fact, the Honda Rebel has normal peg positions. These ones are slightly further forward, and I think they're easy to get used to. But it has a number of little features which the Classic doesn't have, which I definitely like. I prefer the instruments on this bike to my Classic. Also because just as the Himalayan, which I was just riding, this one also has a gear indicator. So you always know which gear you're in. I think it's only a 5-speed gearbox, same as the Classic, but it tells you which gear you're in. And it also has this little tripper here, this little navigation, which shows you, it doesn't show you a map, but it shows you the arrows and the turns coming up. So that's very nice. That's, as I say, I think it's a very nice bike, and I think this one has the touring seat here, which looks very comfortable. Also for the pillion, which got this backrest on it. As I say, the only thing for me, which is the main reason that I think I probably wouldn't be interested in buying it in the future, is the fact that it has the same 350cc air oil-cooled engine as the Classic and as other models here, like the Hunter here. This is the Hunter. But I think the Hunter is probably a bit nippier, a bit faster than the Classic or the Meteor, simply because it's a much lighter bike. It's more like a little city bike. And so you're going to get around a bit more easily, more quickly on this bike than you will on the Classic or even on this one. I think this one has got more metal work on it. This is a heavier bike, probably about as heavy as my Classic 350, so it weighs over 200 kilos, which again makes the bike a little bit slower to ride. And as I say, I think it's a beautiful bike, and if only it had a bigger motor, if it had the Himalayan, the Sherpa 450 motor in it, or of course the 650 from the Interceptor and from the, this is the Continental GT, the Cafe Racer style Interceptor with the 2-cylinder 650cc engine, which again is great for shorter distances perhaps, but I think on longer trips, the seating position where you're leaning forwards over the tank is probably not so comfortable for long trips. And here we've got the brother, the big brother, or the same size brother, 650cc 2-cylinder engine. I think if they put that motor from the Interceptor into the For me, the perfect bike would be this Meteor, the Meteor with these chrome wheels, this Aurora version of the Meteor with a bigger engine, either the new 450 water-cooled engine from the Himalayan, or the 650 from the Interceptor, or the Super Meteor. I think that would be a perfect bike. I would really like to try that bike if they ever bring it out onto the market with a bigger engine. I would be very interested in riding it. For me, it's a very special looking bike, and they make a blue version instead of this green, turquoise green paintwork. They have an Aurora version, which I imagine is a very similar color to this classic 350 with, I forget, they call it Halcyon Grey. That's the official name of this color, Halcyon Grey, although it's actually a pale blue, I think. It doesn't look like gray to me. But I think they make one with, well, I know they make one, the Aurora. I would also like to see this Aurora model with the pale blue, and if only this made a slightly larger, more powerful motor, that would be a very interesting bike. So anyway, we did the Himalayan today, very enjoyable ride, and yeah, some other very attractive bikes here in Chiang Rai in the dealer.